The record button has been
record button
pushed.
has been pushed. That was weird.
That was weird.
You're really weird.
That's how we know we're doing the right thing.
All right, should we start? Do you
Yeah,
want to
go
start?
ahead.
Is this us starting? This
Well,
is
I can-
the start.
I can edit any of this out.
This is the beginning.
This is the beginning.
Welcome to Complexities Podcast. I'm your host, Miss Complexities, and we're here with my partner in all things, Patty Face.
Pat. You can call me Pat. You don't have to call me Patty Face.
The Complexity Podcast will discuss healing from childhood trauma from the perspective of me, a wife with CPTSD, and a husband who's quote-unquote normal or sans serious mental health concerns.
I have none.
That's you.
Well, I have some, not a lot.
But that's why I use the word serious.
Okay.
Our goal is to help others break free of the abuse cycles playing out in their lives and in their minds. With that, I think we should get out some disclaimers and a trigger warning. These are important things, Patty Face. So,
Right.
Trigger warning. We're going to talk about a lot of shit. We're going to talk about child abuse. We're going to talk about trauma. We're going to talk about sex, drugs, rock and roll. We'll probably talk about suicide. We'll probably talk about just like all the things. So if you're looking for a really lighthearted podcast that doesn't make you have feelings, this isn't the one.
Well, I mean,
We'll probably talk about eating disorders, mental hospitals, marriage.
marriage for sure. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, life and marriages. So yeah, serious stuff. But the goal of this podcast isn't to just like hark on all of these serious issues. My goal is to talk about them in a positive way. And instead of, wallowing in victimhood, we're going to heal from our trauma, and hopefully my words won't be triggering, but will be more of a catalyst for change in your life and for healing.
That's good.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
like
a
it.
good trigger warning?
I think it was a great trigger warning.
So we cover all the bad things.
Yeah, well, I mean,
We're going to talk about all this stuff. Oh, I'm going to say fuck a lot.
yeah, she's gonna cuss. I'm gonna cuss. So get used to it. That's just part of our life. Of the things that we've had to deal with, I think cussing is one of the lesser things. We don't need to worry about it. They're just words.
They are just words.
I will say that, this is serious topics, but at least, we're going to be here and it's going to be funny, I think, right? I mean, we have a good, not funny as in we're trying to make you laugh, but more.
I'm going to try to make you laugh, and I'm going to make jokes about
I don't want
trauma.
I don't want people to listen to the podcast and just start, go down a spiral. I want this to be uplifting and kind of hopeful.
Right. Everything I say is going to be in hopes of helping people, not triggering people. But you got to put the warning out there. So we did the trigger warning. Now we're going to move on to the disclaimer. I'm not a doctor.
Nor am I.
Nobody here has any special degrees in therapy, psychology, so any of those degrees. No degrees. We can't give you medical advice. We can't be a substitute for medical treatment. We can't diagnose you.
We cannot.
Yeah. So all I can offer you is my personal experience in my 20 years. My 20 years? Wow, I'm 30. My 30 years.
I was going to let you roll with it. I was going to let you be 20. And I was going to be okay with that.
Okay. So I can offer you my 30 years experience of being me, having complex PTSD, and the last, I would say, like 5 to 6 years has been really in-depth confrontation of who I am and what I'm struggling with. But I've been in therapy since I was 4. I've seen a lot of therapists. I know the drill, and I've done a lot of research on all things pertaining to mental health and particularly complex PTSD and early childhood to adolescence trauma.
Yeah, well, and you've done a lot of the techniques, right? You've been through a lot of the techniques.
Oh yeah, I have 18 weeks experience in a mental hospital where they do a lot of techniques.
That's 2 visits.
2 visits.
2 visits.
Yeah, so I'm not a doctor. If you're looking If you're looking for somebody who's
You might as well be.
been in a mental hospital giving you life advice, that would be me. I just share what I know, and I think there's something that comes from hearing other people's stories and hearing what they've done to heal, opposed to somebody reading a clinical study to you and giving you their science-based advice about something they've never actually fucking lived. Like, I've lived everything that I'm going to talk about, and I'm not going to just assume. I'm going to be fucking honest.
Yeah. When people ask me, like, what are you guys doing the podcast about? What's it about? What's your goal? And I always tell people that, we're taking this as a kind of a, I don't know, like a hopeful example. We've been through a lot. You have a lot of experience. I have some experience, dealing with all the things that you're dealing with on my end of it. I think that we can hopefully shed some light to people, on people. And
I don't want to shed people.
No, we're not shedding people. We're shining a light, right?
Sure,
it's a hopeful thing.
It is. So I think everybody has complexities. Everybody has complex issues. We're all complex beings, and we've all experienced so much. And I don't think anybody gets through life without experiencing some kind of trauma. So we're just sharing our story.
We've made it to a point where our relationship I think we have a bit of an understanding, further than some people, and maybe not, probably not. I mean, we haven't figured everything out, but at least I think we're in a place where we can talk about these things openly, and we can have a discussion without getting angry at each other or harboring resentment. Maybe.
Doesn't everybody in relationships harbor resentment?
They try not to.
Do they?
But I mean, come on. The cards are stacked against us here. And I think that's what we're trying to show people, that
even though it's very hard to be in a relationship with somebody who has complex PTSD.
It very much is. And I think for me, that's what I tell people. I say the podcast is going to help hopefully show people that there is a way. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not easy by any stretch of the means.
Another disclaimer. You're talking about lights at the end of the tunnel. We are not giving you like a cure-all. I have not cured myself of complex PTSD. No. I don't know, like genuinely, I don't know if there is a cure to complex PTSD. But this takes me into one of my favorite topics of complex PTSD, which is complex PTSD is something that happened to your brain because of a trauma you experienced. Your brain reconditioned itself. It went into survival mode to keep you alive, to keep you, to get you through a trauma. And what's so fascinating about that for me is that if your mind it can reprogram itself, it can be reprogrammed again. And that's essentially what I've been doing for 5 years. I've been reprogramming my mind. And I think that's the only way to heal from complex PTSD. You have to go back and you have to reprogram all the things that were programmed differently. So all the things that are different in my mind from the quote-unquote normal things in Pat's mind.
Yeah, things I take for granted.
Right.
But a normal person would take for granted.
I don't know if there's a light at the end of that tunnel, though.
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
I think there's a life with less trauma, with less triggers, with less negativity, with less suffering.
The awareness of it in itself, I think, helps. Knowing that you have it, knowing that you're seeing a trigger and not
giving into it,
not giving into it, or succumbing to it, right?
But right, and I think also when you lessen the severity of your symptoms, it makes relationships more healthy, possible. A lot of people with complex PTSD are just struggling to get through the day, much less, being parents or being partners or even having friendships can be difficult. And I think that should be the goal, alleviating symptoms to the point where you can have a happier life, a more full life.
That sounds like an awesome goal to me.
Right. So I don't think this is like one of those things that you just like fucking cure and you're like, no, I'm great. Yeah, I don't think that
you're not gonna go to therapy and talk to a person for 10 years or whatever, and all of a sudden go, well, I'm good. I've made it.
I've done that.
Yeah, you have. That's what I'm saying.
It was bullshit.
You've been through it. We've done all the therapies, We're probably going to continue to do therapies, but it's not like we're going to come out one day and go, "Wow, I think I'm done." You know?
Right. I think it's different.
I mean, even for a quote unquote normal person, from my experience with therapy, there are times where I feel like I really need to go talk to somebody. I need to sit down. I need to sort some things out. And then there are times where I'm like, you know what? I think I'm okay for now. It's more going to come down on me to be aware of myself and my feelings and my actions and my thoughts. And it's not going to be coming from a therapist to help. I know what I'm seeing. I know what I'm experiencing. I know what I need to start thinking about and try to track and right. And then the other times it gets too heavy and I got to go talk to somebody. And that's a normal person. Quotes.
I know
I am using air quotes.
The perfect normal response to like, what is therapy? Who needs to go? I think for me, and for people that I know with complex PTSD, there's no awareness. There's like, you don't know that that anything's wrong. I don't, and that's not the right way to put it. But you're not aware.
When I met you, you didn't know that you.
Right, you're not aware that you're disassociated from yourself. From
your
you
past.
Knew,
right? You knew, but it wasn't like.
Right, I think people with, or at least for me, I'm not going to keep saying people with complex PTSD because I'm not all people. I'm just me. Me personally, I went through several different diagnoses, which is really popular, which is common for people who have complex PTSD. You know, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 16, which kind of fit for a while, but...
You were 16? Was that your first diagnosis?
Yeah.
And 16 was your first diagnosis? You've been seeing a shrink since how long?
Well,
shrink.
I saw different
I'm sorry if that
therapists.
offends anybody. I'm going to use that word shrink from time
word.
to time without thinking. She taught me that word, obviously. I mean,
I love therapists. They're great people. I use the word shrink lovingly and not in a negative way.
I do too, just because it's quicker and easier than saying therapist.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and it fit for a while. Like, I think there's a lot of similarities between, you know, PTSD and complex PTSD triggers that seem like the mood swings and the changes that happen to people with bipolar.
Sure. That's what you told me when we met. You said you were bipolar, and I was like, oh, I don't really know what that means.
You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, but there were always things about it that just didn't fit right with me. And so I was 25 when I got diagnosed with PTSD the first time I was in a mental hospital. And then I went back a second time, like 2 or 3 years later. And then they were like, no, we think you have complex PTSD. And, you know, it's much more in depth. And so the difference is people who have PTSD or PTS, whatever you want to call it, I'm not particular. I call it PTSD and complex PTSD because that's what the book says. And I
was going to say, yeah, our good friend had maybe told me, shout out to Farah.
Everybody has their own things, their own labels, and whatever they want to call it. I think everybody should have the right to call it whatever they want. I just say complex PTSD and PTSD because that's what the book says, and that's what people refer to it as. People get all hung up on this D because it's post-traumatic stress disorder.
It's just because it's in the book. That's it.
Well,
right?
But people don't want to be classified as having a disorder. You know,
nobody wants a disorder.
I don't think of it as a disorder. I think of more of like your brain's been conditioned. It's a condition, and it can be reconditioned or unconditioned, or you can just continue living with the condion.
A disorder implies that there's something wrong.
PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, happens when you experience like one severe trauma or like a short amount of severe trauma. Complex PTSD happens after you've experienced multiple traumas or a lot of childhood trauma. And by a lot, I mean like... what's that word? Consecutive traumas.
So just over and over and over.
Yeah, just over and over again. Or and with PTSD, a lot of it happens. You know, a lot to people who are in war situations, people who've been
first responders,
or people who've had accidents or been attacked in some way. And those are like one time,
sexual
one-off.
Abuse, people who've
that's
been
what
raped.
I mean by attack.
Yeah.
Like one-off incidents. And the symptoms are different, and the effect that it has on you is different, because whenever you experience complex PTSD, it usually stems from that I feel like it's a buzzword in the community, narcissists. You grow up with narcissistic parents. You get into a relationship with a narcissist and they just fuck your mind up. And that's how you get complex PTSD. So that's the difference there. The difference is that in PTSD, your mind has been conditioned because of something that happened to you.
Like an event.
Like an event or, it's usually an event. And then at least
or
in my opinion.
Or like a group of events, because it's not,
my thoughts on the subject. It happens to you because of a event or a few events, or, you went to war, or you were in a horrible accident. And not to diminish anything. This is just like, a fucking comparison.
They're different.
That you understand. And the reason that I had to understand was because when I got the diagnosis for PTSD, I was like, yeah, that's cool, but there were so many events that I couldn't nail it down.
Is that, were you trying to do that? I remember when you were speaking with your one therapist, you guys were trying to find a singular event. Was that because you thought it was just...
I think everyone wants to find a singular event for me because they're like, this is the moment that your psyche broke.
Right.
But there were so many events.
You can't point to one.
Right. And in the end, I think we all realized that for me, it happened so early that my psyche was never really developed. It was broken. It was broken before it started. But
there had to have been a few minutes where you were okay, right?
I guess. I don't know.
But
that's another difference between PTSD and complex PTSD. A lot of people who have PTSD have a identity and a self before the trauma.
Right.
Whereas for me, and
maybe
not everybody with complex PTSD, but at least for me, there is no identity before the trauma. So complex PTSD disassociates you from your identity. You completely you let go of everything that makes you for whatever reason, usually because of a narcissist, because your parents, because your partner, whatever it was. And another really interesting thing
and I think from what and this is from my outside perspective, isn't it because of it's a survival thing, which is what you were talking about earlier. Your brain modifies itself for survival.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from a scientific standpoint, and you can...
I'm talking long-term survival, not just like, I'm being shot at.
In the moment, too.
Right,
but
it's a different thing.
It's more for children or, adolescents or people in relationships that the survival mechanism that kicks in your brain is like, this is too much for your psyche to handle. We're going to disassociate. We're going to go somewhere else. We're going to not feel this trauma so that we can continue living.
Right.
And then the reason that it continues is because you're experiencing trauma over and over and over, and then that just becomes the resting state of your mind. Your mind is permanently stuck in fight or flight, in survival mode. But if you take the time to step back a little bit, yes, this is awful and it sucks, and you're in this constant state of hypervigilance and triggers and all the bad stuff. But if you take a second to step back and look at it for what it is, like scientifically, it's kind of cool. It's kind of beautiful because your mind had the foresight to be like, hey, this is killing us. We have to change. Your mind has evolved to the superpower of complex PTSD. And it's great for the few years or, the childhood or however long it is that you're experiencing the trauma. The issue arises when, you get away from your abuser, you're not in the traumatic situations anymore. And then you're just stuck in this state of survival. And you're like, for me, I have a husband, I have kids, I have jobs. Like, I'm in a normal life with normal people, quote unquote. And I'm not...
I was going to say, you set up all that before you had a realization of what was going on.
Right, but my mind still is functioning in that fight or flight response, even though I have a safe, healthy lifestyle now, because it's been conditioned to live there.
Right.
And the way to cure or alleviate the symptoms of complex PTSD is to recondition your mind and ultimately not live in that state anymore.
Right. Because you've been conditioned for so long from such an early age.
And that's why I postulate that it's a condition and not a disorder.
Postulate. Great segment. I don't know if you can call it a segment. We just talked and it was awesome.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was good.
Yeah.
We're doing it. So, folks, I just want to let you know that she has never spoken on a microphone before. So if you hear her moving and dropping out, it's because she's just talking off the cuff, and she turns her head, and sometimes her voice will wander, and then she'll come back because I'm pointing at the microphone.
We can't all be gold medalists in music like you, Patty Face.
Gold medalist.
Did they even have microphones in drum corps?
They didn't when I was doing it.
Wow.
Now
you
they
did go
do.
to audio engineering. So
I went on it. So anyway.
So this is great. This just points out another way.
Another way what?
Another way that you are on a different level than me.
What kind of level?
A level at being able to life better.
I'm a little better at life, yes.
Yeah. When it comes to microphones, at least.
Yes. I don't know. It's so funny for me because I tell you this a lot, and I tell other people this too, whether you know it or not, but...
You're talking behind my back?
Yeah.
That's all right.
All the time. I just say horrible things about... No, I sing your praises. You are exactly what I needed, and I don't know, some way I like to think that I'm exactly what you needed.
I don't need things.
You don't, I know. Jesus. See what I'm up against, people? So...
You know, my dad used to say that.
What?
He used to be like, see what I'm dealing with here?
Did he really?
Yeah.
That sounds
would be
like
my narcissistic parent.
Yeah. Well, and the problem is, the problem that I face is that you're 30 years old, right? You should be able to handle
Sometimes
that
I'm
kind
20.
of ribbing because you're an adult and you've grown up. But because of your childhood and because of your father, you can't. And I think that's what a lot of where our conflicts sometimes come from is that I like to poke fun at people, and I think a lot of people do.
Well, also
poke
I'm
fun
an
at
only
each other.
child, and I don't know how to deal with that shit.
Right, and there are certain things that I say that are just kind of lighthearted and poking fun, and any other person would kind of be like, oh, he got me, it's kind of, and they would just deal with it, and we'd go back and forth. But for you, I say something like, you see what I have to deal with, folks? And she's fucking triggered. Well, you're not triggered right now.
No,
but
I am. Like,
are
it
you really?
physically, yeah, like it literally.
Something inside you is...
It'll literally take me back to an emotional flashback of my dad saying that to people when I was a kid.
And this is a perfect example of this happens.
You can say the simplest fucking
Yeah,
thing.
it's the simplest thing that I, as a normal person, quote unquote, would take for granted, which I do constantly. And we have gotten to the point where she can tell me.
Oh, here's a great relationship tidbit.
Tidbit.
If you're in a relationship, platonic, romantic, pen pal, whatever the fuck kind of relationship you're in with somebody that has complex PTSD, learn their fucking triggers. Like, figure out what is going on in their head. It's exactly like you would get to know someone. They're not going to list their triggers on their Tinder account. Ask them personally.
If they're even aware of their triggers. I mean,
right,
sometimes
I know.
they're not.
That's hard. So, that has to be a first step.
And you're not going to know.
But if you're at the point where you're in a relationship with someone, or if you yourself have complex PTSD, I highly, highly suggest, like, just fucking make a list. Like, this is what triggers me.
Did you know I have a list?
Well, I have a mental list.
No, I have a list.
That's what you have to do. Like,
I do.
I can't say this. I can't do that.
Right.
Like, you have to fucking have a list of that stuff because... what was it? Like, a couple of days ago, something happened, and we decided, it was the clutter yesterday. Like, I was like, this is a trigger for me, and I'm still, what has it been? 5 years since I was diagnosed with PTSD, and then 2 years. So anyway, I've been dealing with it for
13.
like 5 or 6 years, and I'm still finding things that I'm like, oh shit, like, my whole life I was just cranky. But in fact, I was actually triggered. It wasn't me just being cranky or moody.
No.
It was a fucking trigger that was sending me into emotional flashbacks.
Right. And me as the normal person, I could spend the rest of my life on this podcast saying to people that I'm using air quotes, just I'm going to put this out here on the very first episode that if I say normal every time, I'm probably meaning with
Somebody
quotes.
who doesn't have complex PTSD.
That way I don't have to keep saying
we
quote
should
unquote
give you
normal.
a name. We should like what are I would love to know. Is there a name out there? Have people given
For somebody who doesn't have complex
Yeah,
PTSD.
there's always like an anti something. I need to know what this is. Somebody
Oh yeah. You
get
have
on our social media.
you've got
we have an
asexuals.
Instagram. I want to know.
You've
Give
got
me the name.
asexuals, and then you just have sexuals.
Sexuals, right?
Right.
And then you have
You have gay and straight.
gay and straight, homosexual, heterosexual.
Why are we thinking of just the sexual ones right now?
I don't know.
Probably because they're the only ones that have identified. There's no like
Are there any other ones?
CPTSD pride group. Is that what we should start? Do a
I
march?
don't know, but there's got to be something. Find us on Instagram or Facebook, and
A word for somebody who doesn't
Give
have
me a name.
CPTSD.
Yeah,
Is
and
that what we're going for?
if there isn't a popular one, just start throwing them at me, and we'll pick a good one, and we'll
We'll
start
pick a good
calling
one.
Pat that.
Okay.
Ooh, if there's not one, we could just call them patty faces.
Oh, I'd be forever just fucking.
You could go down in history.
I'd be the guy. Oh, you're Patty Face. You're the one that started
You're
it
the
all.
original patty face.
You're the original guy that doesn't have CPTSD.
Yeah,
Although I might by the end of my life, I might have it. I might develop
that's my
it.
goal.
We're gonna transfer it to me.
No, I'm gonna bring you down with me.
You're gonna be. So where was I going? Normal, right? Triggers. We were talking about triggers, and me knowing your triggers
Making a list for
Making a
yourself
list.
and
I've
for
made a
your
list for myself.
partner or friend.
and making a list and helping yourself. You're not gonna know. And oh, this is what I was gonna. The point that I was gonna make.
Sounds sharp.
It's
Put her-
kind of sharp. She makes jokes sometimes. And
And
that's
they're
what I meant
always
earlier
great.
when it's going to be a serious podcast, but we're going to try to be hilarious. All right?
My jokes are terrific. Everybody
are.
says so.
That's why she married me, because I laugh at her. So, all right. So my point is you're going to start to know your partner's triggers. I've started to know yours, and I forget constantly because a lot of times there are things that you would normally take for
Maybe
granted.
I should get a shirt that says like these behaviors trigger me. Oh, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna get a shirt that says if you psychologically abuse your children, it's gonna trigger me, and I'm gonna wear it to the grocery store and out in public where all the people constantly psychologically abuse their children.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I should wear that shirt.
yeah. Well, for me, the ones I get hung up on are the less obvious ones, like don't look over your shoulder.
'Cause I don't understand how that's not obvious. Like anybody who has
I don't even.
experienced trauma, like I'm sure everybody hates having. Even patty faces, quote unquote normals. I'm making it a thing.
It's
gonna
gonna
make
be a
it a thing.
thing. Jesus.
You're welcome. So yeah, even people like who don't have any kind of traumatic experiences, like everybody fucking hates having someone over their shoulder, don't they? Who doesn't hate
I
that?
mean, the only time I ever really hate it is if you're like,
God,
I don't
it
know, if
makes
I'm
me
doing something on
wanna
my phone and
jump out of my skin.
I'm not
kill
showing you
people.
something
Like, I
on
just
my phone.
wanna,
Maybe I'm writing an email or sending a text message and somebody's like looking over my shoulder. I don't want you reading my shit, but if it could be
I
like
don't
you
really
could be.
want to kill people. I don't have homicidal tendencies.
Sometimes I'm not even
Disclosure.
looking. I'm just like, I don't know.
I don't know. It's
So anyway,
just always
my
been a
point
thing
is,
for me, so
it's
I
not
have
gonna
no
be
idea what
obvious.
it's like for anyone else.
Sometimes it's not obvious, and just the fact that you're making the effort to recognize the triggers, I think, is important. Recognize them and validate them, and go, "Oh shit, I'm sorry."
Yeah, I think if
That's
if a doctor's like, "Hey, you have
'Cause I'm not
PTSD or
perfect.
complex PTSD," or if you yourself don't have a diagnosis, which is irrelevant. Fuck labels, you don't need it. But if you've experienced trauma in your life, and it causes you discomfort, look at the correlations. Like, look at things. What makes you moody? What makes you cranky? It's like finding a food allergy. What causes you to have a rash? What makes you?
well, they do the allergy test.
Yeah, but it's the exact same thing, but psychologically testing yourself for triggers. Like, what just happened to make, like, completely change my mood?
So I have a question: how do you know that it's a trigger and not just a fucking pet peeve? Like, am I triggered by people eating with their mouths open? Is that a trigger?
No,
Or
I
is
think
it
that's
just
a pet peeve.
It's just a fucking pet. I can't stand it.
Yeah, so when people jaywalk, that is my biggest pet peeve. But
Not a
when
trigger.
No.
Okay.
Although it just made
Your
me
dad
angry.
wasn't like a habitual jaywalker, was he? And
Yeah,
like
fuck
forced
that guy.
you to
Fuck his jaywalking.
forced you to jaywalk with him all the time as a young girl.
I didn't grow up in a city, so there was nowhere to jaywalk.
Okay.
It just drives me nuts.
It drives you
So
nuts for some reason.
disrespectful.
Okay. All right. I'm with you.
Yeah, so I think once you get to a point in your life journey and healing path,
Very NPR. I liked that.
once you get there, it's all about awareness. Once you're aware that you're having mood swings, or it's very easy, because one minute you'll be like, oh, I'm feeling great, or I'm feeling this, and then fucking split second change, you're on the other end of the mood spectrum.
You're raging?
Well, it could be anger, it could be depression, it could be shame, it could be guilt. Like one minute you're something, and the next minute you're something else.
I mean, that happens to me though when the kids
not
eat
all
with their
about
mouths
you.
open. No, I'm saying like, how do we know the difference
you-
between a trigger and
Because
just a?
because
You
had
try to search and find the root for it.
yeah, you got to find out, like, you ask yourself, like, hey, where did this come from? Like, does this remind me, does it have a flashback associated with it? Does
Oh
it
yeah, that's a
have,
good one. There you go.
a visual flashback, which is systemic of, is that the right word? Systemic of PTSD?
Systemic.
Symptomatic. That's the word.
Symptomatic's the one
Yeah.
you're looking for. She's great with words.
What was the word? No.
Symptomatic.
Symptomatic. So, visual flashbacks are
Systematic.
symptomatic. Now you're fucking it up.
Damn it.
Symptomatic. Okay, when you
Did that
have
on purpose, by the way.
PTSD, you have visual flashbacks. You see things, you re-experience them
As a result of
visually.
something that happens externally.
Complex PTSD, and this is something I wondered about myself for a long time. Classically, I was always like, why don't I have like visual, or, see things again or whatever. But when you have complex PTSD, you experience emotional flashbacks, and it's
Oh.
so much harder to notice an emotional flashback.
Sure.
And like literally, I didn't have the language to express what an emotional flashback was until I read a really wonderful book. It's called Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker, I think. I'm gonna talk more about it, but we'll get you the exact details. Anyway, he, like, literally, I was like 6 pages into his book, fucking life-changing. This happened like 6 months ago. And he explained what an emotional flashback was. And I was just like, oh my God, this is my life story. And that is how you know that you're being triggered, because when you have complex PTSD and you go into that, when you get triggered, you start emotionally re-experiencing something. And that means that, for me at least, I'm sent back to being an abandoned, lonely little girl. I'm sent back to being scared. I'm sent back to feeling guilt or shame. I'm sent back to wherever the fuck it was that I felt that way in my past. Pete Walker, is that his name?
Yeah, Pete Walker.
Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. Yeah, that's the book. You can get it on Amazon. Amazing book. I highly recommend it.
A guide and map for recovering from childhood trauma.
Yeah, it's a great book.
You want me to read the blurb?
No,
All right,
we're gonna talk about the book all the time.
We're not
Like,
getting paid by Pete Walker, by the way. This is not.
No, I don't know Pete Walker,
We don't
but
have
thank
any-
you.
we don't
You're
have
an
any
amazing guy.
Yeah.
What I really like about the book
Well, he
is
says he
that
has complex PTSD,
right,
which I didn't
yeah,
know.
that's what I like about it. I don't like reading or like hearing shit about people who have no idea what I'm going through. At least for me, that just seems really fucking weird. So
It is weird.
anyway, I like hearing. Like, I connect to people who know what it's like.
Can I ask you a
guess.
question real quick?
Yeah.
Is that a pet peeve or is that a trigger
It's just a
For
personal
when-
preference.
for when I try to tell you how you feel?
When
or
you
other
try
people.
to tell when you try to tell me how I feel, that's a trigger, because my dad used to try to tell me how I feel, and that's called gaslighting, and that's like classic narcissist behavior. I know that when you tell me how I feel, you're just trying to understand me. But when my dad would do it, he would just completely gaslight me, and like I would go into a conversation knowing exactly who I was and what I thought and how I felt, and then he would just mind fuck me and I would question everything, like literally question my reality, and that's why it's a trigger. And then so whenever you start telling me, or when anyone starts to tell me how I feel,
Not just me.
I go into instant survival mode, and I start my mind makes a correlation between those people triggering me and my dad, and it's like abuser, 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 get away, red flag. And then I just kind of like, I either have to be like, in the past I would just shut down and run away, but now that I've understood it and I have learned the joyous wonders of boundary setting, I can this is very important. Complex PTSD, you need to understand boundaries, you need to set them. But yeah, I've had to do it before. I've had to be like, look, I don't appreciate you telling me how I feel. Back the fuck off. Like, you don't know me. You don't know my life. Like, that's
But
not the way it is.
It's a device that people use to try to understand. That's how I got into trouble with it with you, was I was just trying to understand you.
I don't ever assume that I know how other people feel.
Well, you're just better than me.
I've just been in a lot of therapy, and I know how to have the conversation wheel. What is it, the conversation cycle?
Everybody has a different name.
I
It's
learned
the same
that
thing.
in therapy, too.
The conversation wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we learned that one together in therapy. It was good.
I learned that in therapy with my dad a long time ago.
Yeah, clearly it didn't work.
Yeah, because he was a prick.
Still.
Big shout out to Phil. Go fuck yourself.
By name. It's okay, people. He doesn't have a social media presence, I don't think.
Well, and I think this brings up a great point. I don't want to hark on the past, and I don't want to, be like, oh, I hate my abuser, and I hate this guy, and it's all his fault. Because clearly, we've all been there, and I've been there. And I have moments where I'm still there. But that's not what this is about. That's not where I want to go. So I make jokes because everybody loves hiding behind humor, but also because it just gets you through. Like, if you can't fucking joke about it, if you can't laugh it off, if you can't...
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense.
I feel like I used to hide behind a lot of humor. And then I kind of got to the point where I was like, you know what? It's all fucking relative. And in the grand scheme of things, this is just life.
Yeah, but there's a difference in hiding behind the humor and owning the situation and making it funny.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate everything that my dad did to me. Because he made me who I am.
You're going to make me cry with that.
But fuck that guy.
I appreciate everything he did for me, but fuck that guy.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been less harsh, but then I wouldn't be who I am, and I wouldn't be here. And I genuinely feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to... You wouldn't be with me. I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah.
Who knows where I'd be? I'd probably be like really normal and shit and boring.
Yeah, which
I'd be a
you would not
face.
be with me. Yeah. So
what other relationship advice do you have for people who have complex PTSD? We're supposed to be like one of those cute, or not people who have it, people who are in a relationship with somebody who has it. This is supposed to be one of those cute husband and wife segment things, right?
Oh, are we doing one of those?
I don't know.
We need to do that. So if anybody has any ideas for any segments, we'd be happy to hear them. Obviously, this first podcast is a little rough around the edges because we haven't quite figured out our format. We don't even have music yet, although I have a friend who's working on the music stuff. What's that?
My format's going to be talking to you.
No, I mean, like, structure. Like, we're going to do this. Now we're going to talk about this.
So the next episode is going to be about identity because, as you've heard, I have not identified myself as...
She has not. She hasn't given her name, and I'm not going to give you her name until she's ready to give you her name.
Well, I think, at least for me, and I know a few other people who have experienced the same thing with complex PTSD, and that's disassociation of identity. And for me, at least, I didn't have an identity to connect with ever. Like, my trauma started so young that... I never really connected. And then the name that I was given, it was just fucking a reminder of all the shit that I hated. And so I've just kind of like circulated through nicknames. And for this podcast, my nickname's going to be Miss Complexities. Because genuinely, I don't have a name. Like, and I accept that. For a long time I was like, oh, I got to find a new name. I got to find the perfect name. I got to find an identity. And then I did something really amazing. I just fucking surrendered to how I felt. And how I feel is fucking nameless. Like, I don't really care. As long as you don't call me Brit, I'm good.
Yeah, the dentist called you that the other day. Did you hear him?
No, I was on Valium.
Thank God for that. Because he
Dennis,
literally,
AKA huge trigger for me.
he was trying so hard to connect with you.
I didn't even hear that. I'm
No.
glad I didn't hear that.
He said it, and
can't.
I just looked. He didn't even look around. He was just looking at you, and he said it, and I was just like, oh shit, it's about to go down. Somebody's gonna get murdered in this dentist office. I'm gonna have to explain to the cops.
Yeah, like literally, I will accept anything except for that. So I have friends that call me all different nicknames. I've been all over the place.
Don't go too far down this hole. This is next episode.
Right. So we're gonna talk about identity and what.
We're gonna try to center the whole thing around identity.
Right, and I want to hear what people have to say because I have friends who somehow have like accumulated friendships with people who have complex PTSD. We all like huddle together, but
That's good. We have
have
a community.
You know, some people have said, "Oh, I totally get it. I've changed my name legally like 3 or 4 times. Like I just don't fit with anything." And then I have other people whose trauma started later in life, which I find fascinating, like the whole science behind it all, who do really resonate with their name or kind of are here nor there about it. So I want to hear what other people's experiences are with with where you fall on that spectrum. You know, I mean, genuinely, I find it fascinating where this disassociation comes from. Is it because your childhood, your trauma started so early? Is it because you don't like what the name reminds you of? Is it because you never felt like you resonated with it? Is it because you think your name's stupid like mine? Or, you know, just whatever. I want to hear what people have to say. And then also, I'm going to lay down some fucking science.
Ooh.
And then I'm going to lay down some metaphysics.
Metaphysics.
Because that's what I do. I like to hear both, and I like to give people both.
Why not, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to have all the things so that you can determine what feels right for you.
Right. All of it. All the knowledge.
All the information.
Don't pigeonhole yourself.
I mean, that's why I don't like shrinks and therapists, because if you go to like somebody with like 7 letters by their name, they're just going to tell you science, science, science. And then if you go to like, you know, I'm not talking shit about anybody, but if you go to like a mind, body, spiritual therapist, they're going to tell you like align your chakras.
Well, yeah, everybody's going to come at you from their angle.
Their perspective.
Right. What about all the perspectives? They're probably balance in all things, right?
Right. And
I was
piece of this,
so
a piece
lucky,
of that.
You hodgepodge.
5 years ago, I found a therapist who is a doctor, who is a yoga teacher, who is a mind-body spiritualist, but she's also a really smart fucking lady, done all the research. Yeah. She's pretty sure she's an empath. Like, she's like a god among women. She's just amazing. And she did that. She brought all of it fucking together for me. So that's, you know, that's what I want to throw at people. I want to throw the...
we got to reach out to her and see what she's up to.
Anyway, that's I think the more knowledge you have on the subject, the more you can find what feels right for you. Because that's what healing is. It's just finding the words that help heal you.
Yeah. It's hard. I've seen you go through it. I'm watching you every day.
I watch you every day.
I know. It weirds me out. What's the time at over there? What does it say? How long have we been doing this?
43:37.
Nice. I don't know. Give it like another 15 minutes. Shoot for an hour.
Yeah, you're going to edit all kinds of things out.
No. Probably not. Not a whole lot of editing out.
So we did the disclaimer. We did the trigger warning. Well, let's talk about you. What's your past?
What's my past?
Yeah. What are you bringing to the table?
Oh, I bring...
Or to the mic, if you will.
Lay a fat beat on the mic.
I don't even know what that means.
No, neither do I. But I'm pretty sure I just said fat with a PH.
Well,
I don't know if you can tell the difference.
Because you need to redirect that F word. That was a little eating disorder humor for those of you out there.
Redirect.
All right.
Wow.
Let's. So Pat is a second child. He has classic second child syndrome.
She thinks that I've been, yeah.
He's also been in the Navy for the past 8 years, which really fucks up your head.
Yeah.
So the identity episode's going to be really fun because he's definitely lost a lot of his identity by going through that tank.
Yeah. So I had the normal patty face. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
I had the patty face childhood upbringing.
That would be the non-narcissistic parent upbringing.
Right.
Non-abusive parent
Yeah.
upbringing.
My parents love each other. They've been together for 40 years this year. Married
Okay.
40 years this August. Yeah, they're awesome. They're hilarious. They're great. I have an older brother who is an architect. And yeah, it was a good childhood. Nothing major happened. Nothing bad. I was never beaten. I mean, we got spanked a couple times. You know, it was always a big deal if you messed up. Dad would sit down and point at his knee. That's how you know you're really fucked up.
This is how you know we're from the South.
Yeah. Well, it was the 80s. You could hit your kids in the 80s and
Yeah.
you'd be fine. But yeah, everything was pretty good. I mean, my brother and I are very, very different people. And my parents celebrated that. Like, sometimes, honestly, there are times where I think, man, I wish I would have had something fucked up happen so I would have a little bit more of a personality.
Wow. I wonder how many people that soundbite's going to offend.
Really?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Everybody finds something to be offended
That's
about.
true.
And I have a
No,
feeling
I mean,
that
I
we'll
just-
say a lot of
I
stuff
don't
that
know.
offends
I don't know.
people.
That's a little nugget of my brain floating around right there. But no, I mean, nothing major happened. I had a great childhood. I was happy. You know, everything. I had everything I needed. My dad was in the Air Force. My mom was a teacher. We weren't rich. We weren't, struggling by, any stretch of the means. I mean, we made it. And
Also, we're like the we could be like a Macy's or like a Kohl's commercial family now. We're like white, heterosexual. We have the 2 kids. If we had a picket fence and less tattoos, we could totally be in like
oh yeah, we
a
bought
Target ad or some shit.
we bought a house from the 1950s.
We're like we look so fucking normal that it's gross.
Yeah.
But that's what's so great is that like
she
you
drives
can't
a car.
tell.
I've got a truck. We have a dog, couple of cats.
Some chick.
We just got some chickens.
We
No.
just look like normal people though.
We do. So
And that everybody does.
you're stealing my thunder. I'm talking about myself now.
I'm just telling you about yourself. You are the epitome of the white male
We
in
didn't
America.
have. Oh yeah. No, don't even get me started down that road. We didn't have a white picket fence at my house. We did not. But we had an American flag hanging out front.
Except for you weren't born in America.
I wasn't. I was born overseas because my dad was stationed overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a great childhood. Everything was awesome. My parents are still awesome. Everything's fine. And now I go to college, right? I'm majoring in music because I was the arty kid that kept getting in trouble at home. Not major. I wasn't a bad kid. I was a pretty good kid, all considered. And I don't know, did the musician life, I struggled. Didn't have any money, mainly because I was dumb with my money. I didn't know how to spend. I didn't know how to save. And I was DJing. I was playing in bands. Worked at Starbucks. And I met my lovely wife. And it's all been downhill from there.
Exactly.
All been downhill.
Exactly. I think what's also so great about us is like, I'm pretty sure like the number one thing that attracted me to you was your sanity. like you were just a normal fucking person and you didn't have all of these like issues.
I was just happy go
And
lucky.
you were just like the complete
You were like, wow.
You were like the complete opposite of who I am and the shit show. So okay, so we're gonna say that when Pat and I met, I was a train wreck, okay? But now I'm more of like,
Were you?
oh, I was a complete fucking train wreck. This is
What
like
does that say
9
about
years
me?
ago. Yeah, you're a masochist. So I was a train wreck, and I would say that now I'm more of like a small fender bender on a side road.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody's
so,
rubbernecking, looking at you.
Well, I'm good to look at.
I know. Dead ass though.
Oh my god. So yeah, let's take that into how we met.
You want to do it?
Yeah.
All right, you start.
Okay. So,
No, wait. I should start. No, you start.
well, which is it?
No, you start
So,
for sure.
like I said, I've never been to college. I don't have any degrees.
I don't either, by the way.
Yeah, you do. You have an associates in microphones.
No. Associates in I have an associates in microphones. No, I don't.
Okay, well, whatever.
I have a
Drop
diploma.
out.
I didn't drop out of audio engineering school. I dropped out of college, okay?
Okay, well, I didn't go to college because Daddy wouldn't pay for it, and I couldn't get a loan.
Here we go.
I don't really like college and doing what other people do. I don't like being inside the box. Anyway, so after high school, I had a series of jobs. I worked at tattoo shops. I apprenticed. I worked at, does anybody remember Binnigan's, the restaurant? I worked at Binnigan's for a while. I worked at
That
like,
Monte Cristo.
all these fucking places, you know. And then me and my friend, we'll go into that topic later.
That's a whole other podcast right there.
It's a whole other
That's a
podcast.
whole episode.
Me and my friend at the time, we were like, let's go waitress at a strip club. And do you guys know what the difference between a cocktail waitress and a stripper is? It's about 2 weeks.
Hey-o.
So then,
see how funny she is?
I'm so fucking funny.
God.
Yeah, so we made a really good money cocktailing.
Cocktailing, huh?
And it was great. I loved that job, working at a strip club, just making all the cash. And then the economy kind of went downhill. This was like 2008, 2000.
7 or 8, yeah.
Yeah, in the South, in Texas. So
Pause. At the time, I was, at that time, when the economy was starting to tank, I was holding down 2 jobs, like hourly paying jobs. I was working at a retail store selling audio equipment.
I sell microphones.
Right. Because I was using my expensive diploma that I had earned in audio engineering by selling people things. And I was also working at a coffee shop early in the mornings. So I would wake up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, go work at the coffee shop. Then I would get off at like 10 or 11, have lunch, and I would go work at the
This was like everybody's
store.
story at that time. Everybody was
Right.
working like 17 jobs.
And then I was DJing at night from like 10 to 2 in the morning. And I would try to do it again the next day.
And that's how we met, because I was working at clubs. I became a stripper, did that for a while. Yeah, what? I don't care. Like, it's what I did. And it's kind of interesting because you meet all these other strippers and you're like, wow, we all have so many daddy issues. And of course,
It's a
at the
true
time,
thing.
like, I didn't
You didn't-
register that.
no.
And I think a lot of,
I mean, you did, but it wasn't to the...
I know, but we're kind of all the same. There's going to be a lot of strippers who are angry about this. No, strippers are great. I love boobs and I love women who are comfortable with themselves. And I have no fucking regrets because I did what I did.
I don't either. I have no regrets.
And yeah, and this is everybody's fucking question. Did you ever do more? No, fuck you. I danced naked for money. I didn't have sex with people. I didn't give people blowjobs for money in the corner of a shitty club. I danced naked for money. It's a respectable profession. Put the money in my thong and move along, motherfuckers.
It's straightforward.
So anyway, one night I was really drunk. And this is classic for me because I was an alcoholic at the time. And I'm pretty much sober now, so we'll just throw that out there. Really drunk, and I was like, got off one of my stages, and I was like, I don't want to work anymore. It's like 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning.
You just finished the rounds, right?
Yeah, and
By the rounds, I mean there was the
Going
main
to all the
stage, and then you have to
stages.
go to all the little stages all the way around until you
yeah,
finish.
for those of you who've never been to a strip club. So I get off the stage, and I'm like, I can't drive home. At least I had the foresight.
It was late. It was late.
But I don't want to work anymore, so I was like, I'm just going to find somebody to talk to.
So, okay, pause. So, the clubs, your club specifically, I don't know about all of them, but your club specifically would stay open till like 4?
5.
5 in the morning?
It was.
I thought it was 4.
Yeah, it was a fully nude BYOB club in Dallas. So
They didn't sell alcohol. You
we
could
didn't
bring
sell.
it.
You could bring alcohol, and we were open till 5.
So as a DJ, I was DJing at clubs and just regular old dance clubs, not naked dance clubs, as I
You
like to call
wish.
them. I actually I talked to some people at a few strip clubs to be the DJ there, but I just
It's
didn't
where the
have
money's at.
It is. It's where the money's at, but it's a whole other ball game. You got to have the DJ voice, which I don't have. So,
It's probably because you didn't have any childhood trauma.
I didn't have any childhood trauma. Yay. No, so I was there because I had just gotten off work at some club in Dallas, I think. I don't think I was in Fort Worth at the time.
That was the city we were in.
No, I wasn't in Fort Worth yet. I was still in Dallas. And then I had just gotten off work, and I was like, man, I don't really want to go home. I just gotten paid. I was like, I just kind of want to chill before I go home. I got to work tomorrow, so I'll just go somewhere close. So I went to her club with a couple of my friends from the club I was DJing at, the bouncer and I think one of the bartenders.
Yeah.
Well, they left before you came along.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I was actually about to leave.
So it was all very serendipitous. I'm literally like walking off the stage and I'm like, oh, I just need to find. And this is what I used to do. I was like the world's worst stripper. I didn't want to dance for people. I wasn't really concerned with making money. I just like talking to people and having fun and like, I don't know, just like bullshitting or talking about history. I don't know. I was like literally the weirdest stripper ever.
I don't think it's that weird.
So anyway, I was like, oh, walking around and like I literally took like 5 steps off the stage and I see this guy. He's wicked tall, but I didn't realize that because I was wearing 9-inch heels.
I love those shoes.
And he had a fedora on and he looked like what's his face from
Chris
Coldplay?
Martin.
Yeah. And that's what I said. I like walked up to him and I was like, you look like Chris Martin. Or maybe I said
you asked me if I was him.
Yeah. And I was really drunk. And so we ended up sitting down and talking for like...
I didn't have the wherewithal nor the practice to execute a wonderful British accent. Otherwise, I would have gone down that hole.
And I probably would have believed it until I sobered up.
I would have definitely done that.
So I was topless when Pat and I met.
She was.
And
I had seen her before though, because I was there with my work buddies. But I had seen you. I saw you on stage, and I was a little terrified. I'm not gonna lie. A little terrified.
Yeah, well, I'm scary.
Yeah.
I was probably dancing to like.
It was exciting though. I was like, wow. Yeah, you probably were.
But anyway, so
I was like, wow,
we ended up talking for a long time, and then I put my top on, and I never actually danced for him or got any money.
I didn't want her to.
Yeah.
In fact, well, I'm not gonna say that. So. No, and well, the conversation was pretty neat because you knew a lot of the same. You were dating a guy that I kind of knew.
And I actually like saw your band like a week earlier play, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like I know you."
And you started putting the pieces together.
Yeah, and I started sobering up.
Her boyfriend, she dated the merch guy, as I like to call him.
He was a fine gentleman. We
He
don't
was.
have to make fun of anyone.
I'm not making fun of anybody.
All right. Well,
he was a great dude.
Yeah.
I met him maybe once. I don't know.
Anyway, obviously we didn't start dating at that point because I was in a relationship.
And I didn't ask for your number.
Yeah, he didn't. And that was such a weird thing, too, because, like, anytime people at a club are like, oh, you're so hot, let's go out, they all want to take you home, and they always want your number.
Everybody wants that story.
Right. So, I don't know, we didn't meet again for, like, 8 or 10 months?
Something like that.
Like, 8 or 10 months later, you came back in, and I have a great photographic memory, and I remembered your face.
You would look different. Your hair was short, I think.
My hair always looks different.
That's true.
Because I don't have an identity.
Oh,
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, it was just like a totally weird meeting. And like, I didn't usually go home with people that I met at clubs. Like, that's not a good practice. I don't date.
You didn't go home with me.
I know. Well, I don't usually start dating people that I meet at clubs either. Like, it wasn't a practice of mine.
Didn't you reach out to me?
No, you asked me to go to dinner with you.
I did, didn't I?
Whenever we re-met, like 8 or 10 months later.
Right.
Yeah, and then it was all downhill from there.
It was.
And you're stuck with me forever.
I was infatuated. It was so great because when we went on our first date, I picked you up at your club.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I was doing. I don't think I was working that night. And you came out, and I was like, I remember sitting in my car in the parking lot.
The back door of the club where all the strippers come out.
I wasn't at the back door. I was in the front.
I thought you came to the back and picked me up.
No, you walked out.
Whatever.
Because I didn't know I didn't know.
I don't know either.
I wasn't one of the
It was a long
dudes.
time ago.
I wasn't one of the boyfriends. I didn't have access to the back. You know what I mean? I got that later. And even then, I didn't go around back usually. Anyway.
Whoa.
Yo, good one. It was so. I was sitting there in my car, and I was thinking, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I'd never dated a stripper before. You know, I didn't know what to expect. I thought
that it was going to be really fun, and then it turned out that I was the world's worst stripper.
I thought you were hilarious, and I had a great time talking to you, so I was like, okay, I'm just going to take a chance here, and we're going to go out. and I didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe I had no idea. You could have come out wearing 10-inch heels and a tiny little skirt and just looking like
Everyone else in Texas.
yeah, you could have looked like a crazy person, but you didn't. You came out in like chucks and jeans and like you had a purple button-down shirt on.
And it was July. It
Yeah.
was July. So it was like the end of July. It was hot as hell. And I was wearing long sleeves. I thought I
was
was wearing
nighttime.
jeans and a shirt.
You were wearing
Okay,
jeans and
yeah.
the purple. It was a Converse shirt.
Yeah. It's because I don't dress like
I
a
remember
stripper.
this. You didn't, and I was like, for some reason I breathed. I sighed a huge relief. I was like, oh, she's a normal person. And we went out.
Little did you know.
Well, you are
I'm
at your
really
heart,
great
at your
at
core.
looking like a normal person.
Anyway, we had a great time, and yeah, all's been downhill from there. It's been uphill.
It's been a hill.
There's
been several hills,
hills.
lots of hills, and yeah. So,
I knew
how
what
many people get to say that they got to see their wife naked the first time they met?
Yeah,
Probably not very
I saw
many.
you naked before I knew your name.
I get that a lot, actually.
Not anymore, I hope.
No.
Jesus. Oh man, that's good. Yeah, good story.
Yeah, that's how we met.
Compelling and rich.
Right.
It's a good story. It really is. And then so what happened was the economy tanked. She wasn't making a whole lot of money at the club. I lost both my jobs, my steady daytime hourly jobs, and all I had left was DJing and playing in the band. But you're not making any money playing in the band. It's not happening. And the only money I was bringing in was DJing. We decided we wanted to have a family, and we moved in together, and we conceived our first child.
That
And-
sounds so gross.
Yeah, I know.
Creeper.
Conceived.
Ugh.
Yeah, she doesn't like certain words
Mm-hmm.
because of her father. And then I decided, we should do something. I was like, I'm either gonna go back to school, or I'm gonna join the military. So that's what I did. I joined the military because I could either pay to go back to school, or I could not pay to go back to school. In fact, get paid to do something with full health care. And
Yeah, we thought it was a great idea.
it was a great idea, and it's a good idea for a lot of people. But when it became a bad idea, when we discovered the extent of your trauma, that's when it became a bad idea. The fact that I was constantly gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we have no control over where we're going to live, when we're going to live there.
Well, I think, being a military spouse is like one of the hardest jobs in the world.
It
Like,
is. It's
everybody
very,
says
very
this.
difficult.
This is a fact that we all know. But I think if you have any kind of unresolved issues, or mental health or whatever it is that you're dealing with, like it's a stressful fucking life. So if you or your partner have any kind of other stressful things, it's just fucking overwhelming. But if we hadn't joined the military, we hadn't moved all over the place, we would not have come to find the mental hospital that I found in Mass. And I mean, literally the place saved my life twice.
Yeah,
So,
it's nuts. When I tell people about that story, I say, this, I don't know what you believe as far as the cosmos and universe and religion and things, but for me, it was the universe pointing us in this direction, and we were sent to the Northeast United States for that reason. That's
Yeah.
why we got sent here.
me and
Because,
Steven Tyler.
and the thing, yeah, weird.
I was not at the hospital when Steven Tyler was there.
And so, blah, 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 blah. I lost it. We got sent here for a reason, and the
And
place.
that reason was for me to find out that I was.
Well, our insurance wasn't going to cover it, and that's where I was about to say. It was that not only were we here, but our insurance wasn't going to cover it. And I was like, oh no, it's not a real thing. And then you went and talked to them, and they were like, yo, you need to be here. Whatever your insurance doesn't cover, we're going to just comp it. We're not going to make you pay anything.
That's how you know you should be at a mental hospital.
That's how you know. And they're like, oh shit, this woman's fucked up. We need to take her in.
No, so I went.
They did that
I went
twice.
in. I went in for eating disorder, restricted eating.
We sought them out. right?
Right.
For
right.
eating disorder. We just were like, oh, you have an eating disorder.
Well, I always knew that it was more than just like, I don't want to eat food, which, not knocking anybody, just saying, that's not me. But yeah, so they were like, no, you don't have bipolar disorder. And they started going through all kinds of fun new diagnoses. And, we did exposures and we did all the fun things that you do when you're in an eating disorder clinic. And so I have, it was just like immersion therapy, just like day to day. I've done CBT, DBT, all the shit. Like, you just do all the shit and it fucking changes you.
Group therapy, individual therapy,
It's just all
art therapy,
all the therapies,
exposure therapy.
The only therapies I haven't done, I didn't do any shock therapy. They call it something now. That's the only thing I've never done.
I told you I met a guy who helps with that.
Yeah.
And he seemed to think that it would help.
Yeah, so literally in the last 5 years, I've been willing to try just about anything.
Yeah.
But nobody's ever recommended that. So if somebody was like, this is going to fix you, or at least help you, I probably would be like, yeah, let's do it, because I'm willing to do anything.
I think people are still skeptical about that one.
Well, I know people who've done it and it hasn't helped much, but then I've seen people who it has helped, so.
That's why, that's why you have to have all the knowledge. You got to have the cosmic knowledge. You got to have the science knowledge. You got to have all the knowledge, because everybody's different.
You have to be aware of your own
you got to know what you need.
Your own intuitions.
Right.
Like, after I got to a certain point in my life and really going through 200-hour yoga teacher training, I was able to connect much more deeply with who the fuck I am and what I need. And it's fascinating when you stop pretending that you're not human and start connecting with your emotions, which was my biggest fear. That was a no-go for a really long time. But once I started doing that, obviously the floodgates opened, and it was really hard, and it was really scary, and it was really painful. But it was also really wonderful because it changed my perspective. It shifted the way that I saw myself and I saw the world, and I was able to really see what I needed to heal, from, how I needed to heal it, the things I needed to do. And that's how any type of healing is going to work. What somebody else did isn't going to work for you. Maybe the things in the book that I recommended don't speak to you. You got to find the shit that speaks to you and let that be your path to healing.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can do that. We can help people.
So I'm just going to share.
Find all the things.
I'm just going to share all the things that I've learned, all the things that I've seen.
We're going to talk about our experiences. We're going to share all the things. We want to listen to you, our listeners, right? Send us emails.
Yeah, I want to answer questions. I want to field whatever I can. Yeah, again, I have no...
Hit us up on the Instagrams.
Yeah, I like hearing other people's experiences. I like hearing what other people are dealing with, because for me, when I talk about my experiences and other people's experiences, something happens, and it's always a catalyst. For me, it's a catalyst for the next step of what I need to heal. And I'm hoping that this podcast can be a catalyst for someone else. Somebody can be like, oh yeah, that's totally my life. Or, oh, I think that could, whatever the fuck it's a catalyst for, just let it be your catalyst, because that's the only way you're going to heal. You have to start.
Yeah. I love it. I think this podcast is going to be amazing.
So amazing. I have to pee now.
Yeah, we'll cut it off. What time is, or how much time have we done?
1:08.
Just over an hour?
Aye, Captain.
Perfect. So, I think it was a great start. Right?
Do people say that in their own podcasts?
I don't know. You say what you want to say. That you sound... You say...
This is a great podcast. Download this podcast.
There you go. Self-promotion.
Heal your shit.
Heal your shit by listening to other people.
Stop fucking up your children.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. That's going to be a whole other episode. We got episodes stacked on episodes. It's going to be amazing. So many ideas. So, yeah, this is the first one. A little rough around the edges, like I said earlier, just because we don't have a format picked out. We didn't really have a direction for this one.
I'm always rough around the edges.
I know.
It's just who I am.
I know.
It's fucking endearing.
I know. I deal with it every single day.
So we have an email. What's the email?
The email is complexities.podcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, email us your shit.
Email us your questions. Email us your comments. Email us your concerns.
If you're an asshole, that's not happening.
Well, that's why
you can keep your shit to yourself if you're going to be a dick.
You know what's funny? That's why I didn't sign us up for Twitter, because I figured Twitter, A, I don't understand Twitter. Maybe I'm old. I don't know. B, I feel like Twitter's really toxic. I just don't want to be a part of that. And I don't think that's a good space for us.
Yeah, we're going to talk about toxic people, something I have extensive knowledge on.
I do too. Well, not extensive, but I feel like I've learned some things recently.
And there's that whole meme about, like, cut out the toxic people in your life and see yourself healing. I took that to an extreme, and it's been great. So, fucking great. Highly recommend cutting out the people.
I'm her only friend. No, I'm just kidding.
But no, so send us questions, comments, concerns.
Instagram is at Complexities Podcast.
Right. And you can find me on Instagram under an assumed alias.
See, she doesn't want to say it. That's why she's struggling to get it out. She's
so subconsciously disconnected from identity.
Fucking herself up.
Instagram, Austin H. Howard. That's me.
My Instagram is at Patrick Ryan, PaddricRyan.
Yes.
Yes.
So, yeah. How can we help you?
Is that your sign off? You gonna have a sign off? I don't know if I want to have a sign off. I don't know.
Do people have those?
Yeah, some people do. They just say, we'll see you next time, or
oh,
this and
I have
that,
a great sign off.
Oh, you got a sign off?
Fuck your trauma.
Fuck your trauma. I like it.
Or we could just sign off with fuck Phil.
Fuck Phil. Yeah, good to go. Fuck your trauma.
I'll work on it.
Hit the square.
Oh, I'll hit your square.
Maybe that'll be the sign off.